and get started. Is Penny?
She's not here.
Oh, Penny's not today?
Covering for.
Okay, thanks, Trish. Why don't we go ahead and call the meeting to order? Do you want to do roll call, Trish?
Sure. Dr. Smith?
Here.
Dr. McBride?
Here.
Reverend Duvall?
Here.
Dr. Garza? Ms. Lee? Dr. Khan?
Here.
Dr. Huebner?
Here.
All right. Looks like we narrowly have a quorum. So let's go ahead and get started. I would move to the approval of the July meeting minutes that were distributed. Is there any discussion on the motion?
No discussion, so moved. I make the motion that we
Okay.
accept the minutes.
Okay, I'll second the motion.
Okay, roll call. Dr. Smith?
Aye.
Dr. McBride?
Aye.
Reverend Duvall?
Aye.
Dr. Khan?
Aye.
Dr. Huebner?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, you have 5 yeses.
Okay. So 5 yeses and 0 no's. The July meeting minutes are approved. All right, the next item on the agenda is an update on the RFP. One of the very first things that Scott was tasked with when he became deputy director was to try to broaden the response to the RFP, given the lackluster response during the first iteration of things. And I think he has some pretty good news to report today. Scott.
Yeah, we do have a cone of silence since the decision's not been reached, but we did have an excellent response, and we expect to have a decision before the next board meeting.
Are you able to say how many people responded or how many organizations responded?
Do we have our legal counsel?
Jake is not on, but my understanding is that that is okay to say.
Stephanie's on.
Hi, yes, I'm Stephanie Hill. I'm from the County Counselor's Office.
Hey, Stephanie.
Hi, thanks for throwing it our way. Scott, you can speak in generalities on the number of proposals that were received, but again, as you noted, because the process is still in progress, we would advise to not go into any detail on that.
Okay, great. Well, excellent. We do have 8 RFPs to review, and the process is in process.
Okay, well, 8 is a lot better than 1. And, yeah, okay, and my general understanding, without speaking to any individual applicant or respondent, is that, these are extremely well-qualified respondents, and several of them have directly relevant experience to this. So without saying too much, Stephanie, I think that's very good news compared to where we were a couple months ago. Okay, are there any questions or is there any discussion around the RFP response? Okay, good. Can you share with us any more about the timetable?
For the RFP?
Yeah.
For the operation. So we're still on the same.
Yeah.
At this point, they're being reviewed, and we do expect to have a decision reached before the next board meeting.
Okay. Okay, that's good news. It'll be a long time coming because it was, I think, at the meeting a year ago, today, a year ago this month, when we first kind of initiated move to try to make this happen. So it's been a long time coming, but thank you for helping us bring it to fruition.
And Dr. Smith?
Yeah.
Dr. Smith, if I may add, again, once they work through the process in compliance with the ordinance, certainly they can update the board on the next steps in the timeline, so that you can have a better estimate on potentially the completion of the process, and with the obviously the ultimate objective being a fully executed contract with a selected proposer.
Okay, Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, next item on the agenda is an update on the financial audit that was in response to some of the issues that had been uncovered a few months ago. That's your update, Scott, right?
Yeah, so
And Doug is on vacation today obviously, for those of you who didn't know.
yeah, so, the financial audit results will be presented mid-September, and, so we'll be sharing all of that, with the board at the next meeting, and, all of the information that they have is received. They're just finalizing their report.
Okay, so we expect to have it in the next week or two probably, or?
They've said mid-September.
Mid-September, okay. Okay, are there any questions about that?
Do we know the final cost of this item?
Yeah, I don't have that information, but we'll get it for you. Definitely.
What was the estimated cost, something around like $80,000 or something like that?
Yeah, I don't have it.
Okay,
But we'll definitely get it, and if we can include it in the minutes, we'll do that.
okay, great, thank you, Scott. Any other questions on that? Okay, next item is the operational audit.
So, we are in the process of, actually, the operational audit is the same as the RFP, so that's the same one that we've already discussed. Yeah. The other that we have is the cost recovery analysis, and the daily cost for incarcerating people here, the contract has not been renewed in a long time with municipalities, so there's a review of what the actual costs are, and we're meeting weekly with this, and we expect that we'll have some results on this within about 3 months.
Okay, and was this originally taken in response to around the conversation, you just may have, I assume this predated you, but when the leadership made decisions on the federal contract, I think one of the things that went into that decision process was a look at, was it worth it, for us to be doing that, and what was the exact cost. So, Darby, you may know more about this, just given your history here, than Scott does. Do we have contracts with each individual municipality that are, that have to be renegotiated? Or is there one blanket, contract that everybody operates under?
There was each. There are some counties that don't participate because they have their own.
Sure.
But their contract is with each.
Okay. Well, that is going to be a lot of work for you, Stephanie, if we have to renegotiate. Do you know how many different municipalities we have?
I think everyone is represented to a Tito in the council, basically, right?
We have 52.
52.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm sorry, is Stephanie our new attorney?
I think Jake
Just filling in.
is just filling in for Jake. Is that right, Stephanie?
That's correct. Jake was unavailable today, and I'm his supervisor, so I was here to fill his shoes. So, and yes, we are aware of those contracts, and we'll work with Justice Services to accomplish those in a timely fashion.
Okay. Thank you. And again, for clarity, because we've been doing it. Can everybody go around the room and say who's in here? We know everything.
Sure.
Well, Tony Weaver, I'm the change management coordinator.
Tricia Rogers, I'm the Corrections Compliance Supervisor.
Darby Howard, Deputy Director.
Elizabeth Allen, Corrections Medicine.
Phil Duval, Advisory Board Member.
Scott Andrews, Deputy Director of Administration.
And Jeff Smith, Board Chair. Thank you. Sorry. I was a little flustered when I walked in. All
Hey,
right,
Jeff, could I ask a question, Jeff? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, good morning. On those audits, I know they haven't even been awarded yet, but is there a plan for how the results will be rolled out? Do they first get presented to the county council, to the executive, to the advisory board? Where are we in the timeline or the pecking order in that regard?
So the results will be presented to the director here initially, and then they'll be presented to the board. And then if there's further sharing of those results, the decision will be reached here.
So director first and then to us.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and again, we do, so the only one that's not awarded now is the operational review of the jail. The others are all in process, and we will have the financial audit results by mid-September, and the cost recovery analysis results will not take nearly as long as the financial audit. They're just not as much involved in the process. So we should have, it's likely that we could have the results by the October meeting.
So could you do something, when you guys report the cost recovery, when you present the cost recovery analysis to us next month, would it be possible to include kind of a side-by-side of what the munis are paying? I would sort of like to see. So the answer to that is that all of them are the same for the municipalities. Okay. And there is not a cost recovery if the charge is a felony. It's only when there are municipal charges standing alone. So if the charge is a felony, we have cost recovery from the state? Yes. Assuming if they're convicted. If they're not convicted, we eat the cost. That's right. The Missouri Department of Corrections reimburses on a different contract. So the municipalities are all the same. Tricia, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, they are.
And that has not been done in a very long time. Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a massive disparity between our cost and the state reimbursement for those who are convicted.
Not convicted, they're sentenced MDC. Sentenced MDC. So they get sent to county jail, we don't get
They
refunded
don't
for
get
that.
anything here if they stay in this jail, but if they sent to MDC, we keep that from the state.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I recall, just from my days in the Senate, it was a fight every year from the counties, because the counties were getting something like 22 or 23 bucks a day maybe, and we're going to be over 100. I'm assuming is where we'll land. So I mean, it was a massive disparity. Are there any conversations about making a presentation to the state once we have the cost analysis? And at this point, we're actually working on the reimbursement from the state. There's been a lot of improvement as well in that process. So it has taken a long time to get that reimbursement.
Yeah, it's been some delays over the years. It's just been kind of set like that.
They've always
not just this county, but every county.
Yeah, they've always been like 2 or 3 years behind or something like that.
So speaking of that delay, what was this, that was just announced in the Tuesday council meeting that the state owed some money? What money was that?
So there's a delay. There has been a delay. I don't know that it's been 2 or 3 years ago. I think it has been a year. But we have been able to get that shortened. So there's not currently as long of a delay in getting it, but there needs to be a better process, clearly. And that was what that discussion was about.
But didn't Governor Parson just release a check to the county?
Yes.
For the sums of how much?
I haven't seen that yet. I don't know that it's been received yet. Yeah. But we'll have that information soon. I did hear the same newscast, but I think it's bringing us back to where we're close to being on schedule. Okay, that's positive. I mean, the state is as flush as it's been in a long time right now with all the federal aid, so hopefully we can reduce any delays that are there. And I'd love to be part of this conversation since I have, I work with the state treasurer and I'm a little bit familiar with kind of their cash flow,
just some of the processes, and so, please feel free to include me if you think I can be helpful. Okay, any other questions about the cost recovery analysis? All right, let's move on to the issue that we've been talking about probably the most over the last 6 months, which is recruitment. I know you had another recent job fair. I know typically, we've had a decent initial response, but then the number of people who have actually been eligible, has been a lot narrower, and then the number of people who've actually shown up and completed training has been substantially smaller. Can you give us an update on the last fair?
Yeah, so we did interviews again last week. The group the 14 that were hired and completed training last month are now working in the jail, and we have a class that started last week with 5, and there'll be another 10, likely starting within 2 weeks. So on average, we're out the last 2 months, we've had 15 additional officers, but we're excited about the potential of increasing that number with the recent county council approval of the recruitment incentive, as well as things that we're working on here. So we recently were approved by the U.S. Department of Labor for an apprenticeship program for corrections officers, and that there has been funding through U.S. Department of Labor to which the county will receive, which will provide an additional incentive of $500 for those new apprentices when they complete their probationary period, and that will be above and beyond what the council has approved. In addition, all of them, when they complete the apprenticeship, and existing staff that will also receive that credential after 6 months, that will be eligible for up to 30 hours of college credit through the community college systems in any surrounding county. We also are recruiting veterans actively. So under the GI Bill, people that come to work here that have worked in the military, even if it was 20 years ago, will be eligible for up to $2,000 in a housing allowance under the GI Bill, in addition to their salary. And there also are funding streams available for hiring people who have been discharged from the military within the past 5 years, or their spouse, which will provide the county with reimbursement of 50% of their wages for the first 6 months. And we have similar on-the-job training agreements now established for dislocated workers and youth up to age 24. So we're continuing to explore all of those.
So youth up to age 24, is that like people aging out of the foster care system, or is that anyone up to age 24?
Anyone that we hire up to age 24.
Is eligible for that whole package?
Eligible for 50% of we would be eligible for reimbursement of 50% of their wages for the first 6 months. These are all separate programs that we have now, which are approved. We're waiting. There is a process for approval that goes through that's still pending with the apprenticeship, but the award has been approved by the Department of Labor in the state, and we're just waiting on the council approval for that. But the others are already approved, and we don't see any reason why we won't receive that final approval on the other. So there also is an internship program for people in the military. They can work here in the county justice services system the last 6 months of their active duty while the military continues to pay their salary, which is great for us because we can start their training process sooner and get them in and working. So those are, we are invited to all of the career fairs at the military bases as well as throughout the St. Louis region. And we've met with recruiters from all St. Louis City, St. Charles, Jefferson County, Lincoln County, on the other side of the river as well. Military recruiters, state career center recruiters, and vocational rehabilitation.
That's a lot of different buckets. I have one just quick question. Aaron, are you on?
I am.
Is there are you aware of any analysis that's ever been done on like use of force incidents, and if there's any kind of breakdown by age of COs involved in them?
I don't know. Do you mean in this jail?
I was specifically referring to this jail. Maybe Beth knows of any research out there more broadly. I would just be interested if there's, if they're like disproportionately concentrated among, much younger CO. I mean, just something to kind of keep our eyes on, depending on, I could see a lot of interest in pursuing younger workers if, with a deal like that. And then would they be eligible for that housing allowance too?
If they served in the military. So the housing allowance is through the GI Bill, through the VA.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. But I would, if it's not, do we record the age of CO? Is that any part of any analysis done on use of force? No. Okay. Look, would that interest any other board members?
Jeff, I was going to bring this up later when we looked at the dashboard, but one of the things I noticed about the dashboard was a pretty huge increase in use of force incidents in July, almost a doubling or whatever. So I marked that as something to ask about, and we've been doing quite well on that for several months. But, it looks like almost everything sort of doubled in July. So I was going to ask about what's going on there and getting at sort of root cause analysis that you're talking about, whatever the analysis is. Beth's the expert here, but I that just as a data person, I looked at that, and that's the one that sort of jumped out at me.
Yeah, that was kind of one of the reasons that it was on my mind to kind of flag. So I would, and we'll get to that when we get to the dashboard, but I would be interested going forward if we could just collect that data on use of force incidents. Now that we have a special incentive to recruit, from, I think pretty young folks, I would just want to have a little more of that information before we went full throttle.
Yeah. All right. And just to clarify, our current requirement is that they be age 21 or above.
Okay.
So we would be, unless that policy changes, we would be talking about people from age 21 to 24. I can tell you, though, that all of the surrounding jails and the State Department of Corrections have revised their qualification requirements. And if you look at, you'll see that the Department of Corrections no longer has any requirement for age or high school diploma and GED. And
you don't even have to have a GED.
And there also have been revisions and changes from St. Charles County that have lowered the age there, and the city as well.
Okay. Yep.
You were referencing quite a bit the robust. Is that a memo? Is these notes? It was quite a bit, so I'm wondering for next month's minutes.
I'll send it out with the minutes from this meeting, if you'd like. This was put together to be shared with people, so I'll be glad to attach it.
I'd like to get a copy because of some of the things we discussed.
Yeah.
Prior to the meeting.
Yeah, thanks. We're very excited about this. I think we'll see a big increase. And this is not something that's been just a challenge to our department. This is something that's been a challenge across the United States, and you'll find it in all settings. So it's important that we're continuing to stay out in front of this.
So kind of combining two agenda items here or segueing, you said there's been an average of 15 new recruits the last couple of months?
Yes.
So has that been offset by resignations, or have resignations gone down, or, how does the 15 compare to the other side of the ledger?
I would say that we're still getting resignations. The 15 I wouldn't say it's helped, but we're starting off at a low ball, trying to fill some numbers we've never seen before. I was just talking, I guess you brought up St. Charles, I talked to their director, they just had 8 resignations as of last week. He was asking me, they're struggling, trying to see what initiatives we have going. I don't know if it's a thing with corrections, but we are getting the competitiveness with other entities. We got waste management. We just lost the guy. They got a $3,000 signing bonus on waste management, and he left. So it's just different jobs. It's more brutal out there. There's other opportunities with people with bus companies. They're giving bonuses. And people are taking. I come and ask them, hey, where are you going? I'm going to the bus company. I'm moving to Texas. So
What is that current CO openings?
I'm sorry.
What is the current?
73.
No, openings? Real quick, Jeff. Hey, Dr. Levin, do we have numbers that have tracked the decline? I went back last night researching. I saw back in January of 2020, we had 20 vacancies of January 2020. And I couldn't find yet, it's somewhere in there, we had actually hit a single digit for the first time in God knows probably, but it was short-lived. Mm-hmm. But I'm just curious to know, are we tracking?
We've been looking for the data, essentially. That's one of the displaying a staff to inmate ratio window on the dashboard. Supplemental dashboard is one of our next prospective windows that we're looking at displaying, but essentially we're still working on tracking down the data.
I think you have multiple things in play here with the pandemic, the additional increase now in the rate of the virus. A lot of people's children are going back to school. You have the workforce in general, a lot of them preferring to work remotely. The jail is a situation where people may be concerned. You have news media publicizing issues in the city jail, and the public is not differentiating between. But I really want to emphasize what we've been able to accomplish just in 2 months. And so I think you'll continue to see the recruitment numbers increasing and the retention rate also improving because of the movement that the county council has made here recently.
And so, if I'm not mistaken, and Tony, you may be able to speak to this, or maybe you, Scott, that was a perfection motion by the county council, and it needs to be like truly agreed and finally passed next week, or is it on the county executive's desk for signature? Yes. Okay. Well, great. And it's total of $2,000 of a sort of recruitment retention bonus paid out over how long?
So this will be through ARPA funds. We're waiting on details because it was different than what the draft bill included.
Yeah, they made a change just right before the meeting.
So as soon as we can get those results, we'll share that. But this would be through the duration of the ARPA funds, which would take us through 2024.
Great. So $2,000 a year bonus for the next 3 years or 2.5 years.
And yes, but they're still working on things. So it's possible that could change.
Jeff? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, and well, we seem to be segueing into the council's action, and just stating up front, we were talking about overtime and staffing and all that, but stating up front on the council's action, I just want to say out loud that I watched the hearing when Jeff sent the link out, and thanks to Director Burris and Jeff and Reverend Duval for their hard work on getting this. This has taken months of action, I think, and the Justice Services Board played, I think, a positive role in making that happen, and this is obviously important, so I applaud everybody who I didn't mention, and everybody in this musical squares, for their hard work to get this done, and everything we've been talking about will make a positive impact, I hope. You know, it's not reflected in these dashboards yet, but I just want to state up front that I think this is really important that we've made that effort, and I'm glad it'll get signed. And you know, in this environment, it was positive to see the spirit of cooperation in the council. You know, but speaking to that staffing, the amazing Aaron, thank you for all that you do, and I would appreciate, you know, what Reverend Duvall said, if there could be some sort of staffing thing. I know you're working on it, so you'll get us something. I didn't see it there, but
that's one of the next things on the list. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, as I say, you're doing an amazing job. So thank you for everything you're doing. But you know, one indicator that's on there is the overtime hours, which is the highest it's ever been. So that's a symptomatic measure, unless I'm wrong, of staff shortage. So I didn't want to start with the negative. I wanted to start with the positive, but I worry about that overtime hours.
And we do have this on our agenda to talk about in just a couple of minutes as well, so we'll go into more detail then.
Why don't we skip ahead and go ahead and address this, and I have kind of some follow-up thoughts, so why don't we go to that, and then we'll come back to employment initiatives.
Okay.
I apologize for screwing up your agenda, Jeff.
What do you think? No, you apologize for this.
No, I mean, it's all interrelated, so it's fine.
It is all interrelated. So we had an excellent opportunity at the County Health and Welfare meeting, August 12th, to talk about this, and the council members that were present were all in agreement about the importance of this. But when you're down 60 or 70 positions and you're just trying to cover shifts, there is overtime, but we also have a plan that we presented at that meeting to address overtime. And we have a committee that Tony has chaired, also that worked on that plan that was presented. And the concern one of the concerns that I've heard is, how do you continue with the increases after ARPA? And just if you look at the budget numbers associated with this, if we're fully staffed, we won't have the overtime expense, and that would pay for the increase. So we're very confident moving forward that we can get the positions filled. We are working very hard, but it's difficult to have no overtime when we don't have the staff. So that's where we're at now, and just operationally with overtime. But there's been recent changes that will make a big difference in that as well. Tony, do you have anything on behalf of the
again, once we become, when we say fully staffed, I don't think we're going to be able to get to 70 before staffed, but I think there's a number out there that we can say that once we reach a certain number, the overtime will be reduced. Now, we do have to keep in mind, it will always be overtime over here in this facility, but it can be manageable. And I think that's what we're trying to work toward, more so than anything else.
Okay. So in the spirit of us being an advisory board, one thing that I kind of noticed as we embarked upon these kind of negotiations with, you know, our kind of recommendation and then negotiation with the council was that I think the vast majority of council members had never been to the jail. And I think that it would definitely, there was a lot of, I think, really constructive engagement of council members over the last few months. And I'd love to see that continue, because the next, you know, we don't know what the next thing that we may seek from the council is, but it would be good if we weren't coming in cold, you know, next time. And so I would encourage the leadership, you know, at the facility to really not let the conversations that have taken place over the last few months be one-offs. You know, just continue to engage people, going back a little bit to, and we'll talk about employment initiatives in a moment, but I know Doug was pretty intentional about trying to reach out to council members and invite them like to the recent, graduation of the, food service management folks, which I want you to talk more about. But I think finding those opportunities every month, or as frequently as you can to say, hey, come over and look and see what we're doing and ask us questions and, just having a running dialogue, I think will foster, maybe hopefully even quicker collaboration and outcomes the next time that something arises.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Anything else on the county council's, work over the last?
I would just add that they indicated at the meeting on Tuesday that this was a start, it's not finished, and so it's an excellent first step, and we do anticipate additional approvals.
That's good. That's great. Okay, backing up now and on employment initiatives. So it's one of the things that I think really since the board was reconstituted a couple of years ago, it's certainly something that I've personally been passionate about. I know other advisory board members have been passionate about just trying to make sure that these guys and gals, come here and never come back here. And the key way to do that is through vocational, opportunities. And it just feels to me, based on my own personal experience and then based on walking around this facility, the more things people are constructively engaged in, the better the morale is for them, and the better the morale is for detainees, the better it is for everybody here. So, so I'm been pleased to see the different steps that everyone has taken in that direction. Got an opportunity to address the commencement of the recent graduating class of food service management people a few weeks ago. I'll send around some pictures to the board after the meeting, but it was a really inspiring experience. I've honestly, I've been in a dozen correctional facilities, 11 of them voluntarily, and I've never seen, I don't think I've ever seen a climate as positive as I saw at that commencement ceremony. Just how appreciative people were for the chance to learn those skills, how excited they were to translate them to the real world. They were, Mr. Hayward, I want to acknowledge Mr. Hayward's work with them because you could tell they had a real bond with him. So, from the leadership down to the people interacting with them on a day-to-day basis, they just had such positive things to say. And since I've been in this role, most of the time when I'm walking around here, I'm with, someone from leadership or a CEO is walking me around. This was the first time that I had a half hour just to sit with detainees and have them talk to me. And they understood that my role, that our role is, in large parts, to be an advocate for them and their safety and better treatment. And not one complained to me about anything here. And so I was pleased to see that. Obviously, they're a subset of the people in the facility and probably one of the most motivated and positive subsets, but nonetheless, I wanted to just acknowledge and recognize what a great moment I think it was, here at the facility. So thanks to you guys and thanks to Mr. Hayward for helping make it happen.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we have, just to give everyone an update on this, we had a Safe Serve graduation 2 months ago with about 30 participants, and then there was a Safe Serve management class where 15 of them continued on and obtained that credential. And Jeff was the keynote speaker there, and we want to also recognize Jeff for the work that he's doing with St. Louis University and the Transformative Workforce Academy, because our next step now is that they'll be bringing volunteers in to assist residents here with preparing video resumes for video interviews. October 16th will be the career fair, and St. Louis University has done 4 of these now, I believe. And they had over 100 employers that participated in the last. And so people also that are released here under community supervision through pretrial and probation will also have an opportunity to participate. So there'll be some help in preparing them for that. And Monday, we have Demetrius Johnson coming from his foundation to tour and talk with workers in the kitchen, the laundry facilities, and the maintenance departments, because there's an agreement for major hotels in the St. Louis region to employ people, and the experience that they're gaining doing this for large numbers of people directly correlates to that hotel industry. And at the graduation ceremony, 3 restaurants actually were announced that they'd be hiring graduates of that Safe Serve graduation. So a lot of great things are happening. We also have a $4 million grant that's been awarded to St. Louis County, and that they'll be coming in. It's not implemented yet. It should be implemented within the next 4 months, and they'll be coming in to provide job readiness training, resume assistance. And so we'll continue to develop these types of opportunities for people even before they release.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, I have a meeting next week with the Family and Workforce Centers of America, which is the nonprofit agency that's going to be implementing the DOL grant that you just referenced, to kind of learn more about their plans. And then on the SLU, Transformative Workforce Academy, just to contextualize that a little bit more for board members, it's a sort of nonprofit incubated inside SLU that is focused completely on second chance employment, cultivating employers, training employers in understanding the justice-involved population of job seekers, and also job coaching and helping justice-involved people navigate the process. So everything's going virtual for now. Employers actually seem to like it better that way, because instead of being kind of swamped at a job fair with like 50 people, and maybe you want to talk to that one, but these 4 are, shoving their resume at you, they seem to find it to be a more orderly way to hire. And so we're going to have detainees who have outdates or who appear that they're close to release, be able to make these like 2 to 3 minute videos where they just describe their own work experience, their kind of vision and passion, and what they would love to do, and give them a moment to talk about how they've overcome adversity in their life, which I think is really, in kind of my experience over the last, several years doing reentry work, it's really what employers want to see more than anything, is someone be able to say, hey, I made a mistake, but here's what I've done to change my life, here's how I've changed my mindset, and what I've done to overcome the adversity I've faced. And so we're going to have job coaches in to kind of coach them and help them with the video. And then, October 19th is the date that employers will all get to view these videos. So the biggest challenge is just going to be timing. There's been a challenge here with knowing when people are going to release. In talking to the case managers about this, some of them, have said, hey, we sometimes don't even know till the day of. And so I've talked to, leadership here about seeing what you can do to get more advance notice, because the more notice we have, the better we can do in connecting these guys with employment, as opposed to just putting them out there with, hey, here's a card of someone you can call. That's nice, but it's much nicer to have them actually make the video, have an out date, have a job coach that they can work with on the outside.
Yeah.
So you guys are working on that?
Yeah, we already are preparing a list, and we're making real progress. And this is another reason why it's so important to have the number of staff that we need. And there are limitations with COVID in terms of being able to convene groups and larger than 10, and But, so there are some challenges, but this is a priority for us, and we will look forward to reporting some excellent results ahead.
Okay, any questions on employment initiatives? I apologize to all of you that we skipped around so much, but hopefully I think from here on out, we'll go smoothly through. Phil, and so we'll go to the next agenda item, because we kind of have covered Department of Labor and Veterans. So, Phil, I know you had, you put forward this agenda item, advisory board special committee request. You want to take it from here?
Well, I mean, I guess I'll start off with referencing the bylaws that we have that affords us to have special committees. And a couple of things we've already brought up, like the spike of use of force. I've looked at some other recommendations from the two previous administrations. I want to review policy 148, which is the directors meeting, to find out if advisory board members can not only come to the meeting, but review some of the notes and the minutes from these directors meetings. Real quick, what caught my attention was when it talks about morale, and it gives an opportunity of frontline staff to be able to talk to the director directly to share what's going on. And I want to see how well that is working, and I want to see some evidence that it's been going on, because some of these anecdotal issues or concerns, I think if they had been conveyed to the director, I'd be interested to know what's been going on along with it. We get it in terms of losing staff. We get it knowing that our compensation, you know, these were things that predated us. But relative to what's being said, how is it being followed up, I think that the advisory board members, if they can, to avail themselves. You also said something very interesting, Jeff, and you were making the comments about engaging the council. I would encourage us too, not to take away that great experience that I was there too on one of those with the graduation, but I think it would behoove this board, advisory board members, to possibly come in here when it's not an organized event, and to go down in that galley and talk to some of those workers and hear what they've been experiencing on their pods. They're doing okay in the kitchen, okay? But there's a lot of chatter that goes on, and suffice it to say, I was in here months ago that I went down there, and Doug was busy and said, hey, just go down there to the galley, and then I compared it to the most recent visit. And some of those things, again, are trending. I'd be curious to know what's being said to the top, what's being done about it, and then looking at some of the other policies. Also a little concerned, but I'll kind of wait. Now, Dr. Huebner, I'm going to send you an email, ma'am. I'm very concerned. We had talked to the director about the ABLE program, which I understand is for law enforcement only. It's a component, it's called ABLE. It's an active bystander, law enforcement only. But I'll send you the link to Georgetown University and ask you to just kind of look at it, because there's some things, I'm going to read them off real quick, Jeff. Reduce unnecessary harm to civilians. Well, that's on the police side, but it would be reduce unnecessary harm to residents. Reduce unnecessary harm to officers. So we want to reduce unnecessary harm to our correctional officers. Reduce the risk of officers losing their jobs. Improve the relationship between corrections and the community. Improve officer health and wellness. We know the tremendous stress as I've been reading some of the anecdotal data, all comes into why we're losing or maybe not being able to retain. I just want us to be a little more attentive, and maybe after reviewing some of this, Dr. Huebner and Dr. McBride could possibly get us some language together to increase the training component and address these issues that we know are internal. I just want us to have a little more robust discussion, but it gets back to your point, Jeff. We don't want to wait until we need something, then we're asking people to come over here and see. You know, let's be fluid, let's be, deliberate, and let's, so I know of this board, I'm probably.
And proactive.
Yes, and I'm probably, without saying, the most flexible person on the board right now, in terms of time. But I want to take on some of these things and suggestions, and I have some more recruiting advice and recommendations, but I'll pull it together, send it to you and to the board, and then hopefully we can come up with some additional recommendations that are put on a timeline. And then the last one, and I promise I'll be quiet.
You're good.
One of the things in this work as an advocate outside, and I say advocate, I'm not talking about advocacy and activism. I'm talking about this advocacy in general, is that we get all these good reports. We get all this data, and we don't do anything with it, right? And looking back at Colonel Doyle's 90-day assessment, looking back at the Vera Causa report, the informations and the suggestions are there. They're there. And I'm just now wanting to see if we can bring those words alive, just like we do in church. It's no good to just read the scripture. We need to get the words in the Bible and bring them alive and put some application behind it. So I don't think we have to really reinvent the wheel as much as we just need to oil the machine a little more, massage it a little more, and be a supportive partner and advising that, hey, Scott, I've looked at this, Darby, here's what I'm looking at, what says you? But the retention part of concerns about morale, I'd be interested to see in policy 148 of the directors meeting, what have those conversations been like? And where are we going with them, and what can we possibly advise of maybe what we could help? Because we understand these gentlemen and ladies have a jail to run, and they don't have that much time to spend doing all those incremental things of hey, you got an issue. And lastly, Doyle put in his statement, it's like fighting fires. I don't know if you've ever worked a job, but that's all you do is fight fires. But you really can make a lot of progress if you're going to fight fires every day, all day. The forest fire will always just be your job. What about when people need some rest? What about when the fire can be contained at a campfire versus a forest fire? So that's where I'm thinking, and that's the data and the information, and I just want to kind of share that with my colleagues and go for that. I yield the rest of my time in this meeting, and I will be quiet. Thank you, Jeff.
I just want to say, Reverend Duval, county police need to come over and do an April presentation for us.
Okay.
Just want to let you know where we're at on it. We haven't progressed any, but they did spend some leadership over here.
Well, sort of what I heard, which also makes sense. When I looked Dr. Huebner on the website for Georgetown, I mean, it's detail specific for law enforcement, and that they really have the component for corrections, but that's not to say the information that's there is not something that can be reviewed and incorporated while still, like you said, the training. And I think when it came to leadership training, again, these are things I know we're going to have to work on because we just don't have the staff to be bringing everybody out to have this training. So I get it. So I'm glad that they did follow up, but unfortunately, they just said they couldn't really offer it because it was for law enforcement only. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and I think we welcome all the help we can get in all these areas. One thing that you may be able to also help us with is getting the word out about these openings. So we'll share the websites and information about the apprenticeship programs. The Department of Labor is posting it now. I should have mentioned this before on their Apprenticeship Connect site, so it's going nationally as well as across the region. And all the community colleges I've made contact with them. All the law enforcement training academies in the state of Missouri have the information as well. But to the extent that each of us can help share that I think that the first step in all of these solutions is to get the number of staff here, because when you're working overtime and you have mandatory overtime, it does impact the staff and the safety of the operation. And so, as was mentioned, it's all interconnected, and I think a lot has been done, and keeping in mind that when the review is done, it's a compilation of things that have happened up to this time, but some extraordinary things have happened within the last year under Director Burris's leadership, and we're making progress. So it does take some time.
What's the chaplain's name?
Ted Winters.
Yeah, check with Ted Winters. You know, a lot of churches, you know, veterans go to church. Right?
I just asked him that.
Yeah, ask Ted Winters to get access to these churches' websites and make some announcements electronically and send them. Same with yours. The information is powerful. Send it to those church websites and let that spread the word. It may motivate some people to get some of the folks come on and get back to work.
Great idea. Yeah, let's do it.
So, just in response, to some of the kind of issues that you raised, can you describe, kind of the mechanisms for frontline staff to communicate concerns to leadership?
So, Director Burris has invited everyone to meet individually with him, and he set aside a day each week just to do that. And he's had many meetings with staff. Tony, want to share a little bit about what you're doing as well in your position?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I do as well, I actually go up to the residents' pods and speak with them personally, find out what's going on. There has been some pushback in terms of doing that because of the fact that I'm trying to be very careful not to impact the responsibility of the current staff that's there. But one of the things I think has been very valuable when Director Burris writes those letters to the residents, I'm the one who usually deliver them to them. And I talk to them and express the satisfaction that the director has in writing them. And then I have opportunity to discuss any concerns that they may have and make sure they're going through the right channel and the right path and get it done. So I think that's what the key is. You have to continue to talk to staff as well as the residents to make sure that we are doing whatever we possibly can to make things as positive as possible. But it is a serious challenge in this jail at this time. We really need to review that communication process as to when there's an issue or problem with the employee, what is the process that they go through to get satisfaction? We really need to review that process.
And the director also has set up a process so that the residents can send a card to him requesting information, and there's been follow-up on many cases there. I think that it's a process that we're continuing to review, and there are 3 shifts here at the jail, which complicates things as well, and I know that some of this has been discussed in the overtime committee and promotional committee, some special committees that the director has convened, and so we'll try to put together a full listing of everything that's been done just during the past year, so that you have a full list, and we can report some of those outcomes.
Okay.
I think, did you get your question answered?
I sort of got the question answered. I'm going to follow up on that question when we get to new business.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Jeff,
Yeah.
unless you want to punt this to new business, can I speak to what my friend Reverend Duvall talked about?
You may.
So if I understand, what he was talking about and just sort of putting this in context over the last, I don't know how many months we've been on this now, seems like close to 2 years. I'm not, I certainly understand the role of the advisory committee. We're advisory. But I think we've made a ton of progress in understanding our role and putting it into the bylaws and how we work with the director and the staff and the health department and the council. And as we just mentioned, we've had some particular success right now in the last week in working with the council in a proactive way. And, in this environment, it's quite a victory. So, I think the Reverend's suggestion's a good one, because as we got on this board, we came in a period where there were, significant concerns, and we're still wanting to look into that, and we want to make sure that those don't pop up again. I think a lot of progress has been made, and, the health department, as I say every meeting, kudos to them for keeping COVID almost entirely out of the jail. Amazing accomplishment. So, but I think a lot of that has been done with advice of the advisory board. So I think if, in the spirit of what I'm hearing Reverend Duvall say, is there other ways that we can meet and suggest policy changes? I think that's part of our role, or to comment on process or comment on operations that could proactively avert challenges in the future. I think that's not a bad idea to do that, and just sort of think, what are those challenges we foresee coming, and what recommendations might be made to policy and procedures. Does that make sense?
It does to me. I think that we very much need your help. Thank you.
All right. Let's go to the dashboard if there's nothing further on that item. Aaron?
Sure. Could I have the ability to share? There we go. All right. Just a few updates for the dashboard. Population as of this morning was just under 900. If you include, that's if you don't include intake. If you include intake, I think it was right around 910. We'll just look at the overall trend. Basically, in the last since it's about mid-June, we've had kind of been fluttering in between 850 and 900. There was just a lot of little ups and downs. There was a period near the end of July where we got down near 850, but we're back up close to 900 now. In terms of length of stay, one thing I wanted to note is that the prediction that we all made last month about the length of stay bouncing right back to its relative norm was exactly what happened after all of the federal releases, which were people who had been here a really long time. That's was the hypothesis, was that was what was spiking the length of stay and making it so long. Once those were all off the books, the released residents' average length of stay went back down to a relatively normal number. Excuse me, a little bit higher still than it's been historically, but we'll see if that continues to converge down toward closer to this relative average baseline. As people mentioned earlier, the use of force did go up this month. I really don't have much more to comment on in terms of causes, because I'm not really directly privy to that, but the data do show that we had significantly more in July of this year than we did in the last 8 months or so.
Can we pause for a minute, Aaron?
Sure.
So what are your thoughts? And Tony, you know, all of you feel free to weigh in.
I think that, I have data here that we can share, but of the 891 people detained in the jail, 264, nearly 30% of them incarcerated for more than a year. 147 of them have more than a year, 68 have more than 2 years, 33 have more than 3 years, 10 have more than 4 years, 5 have more than 5 years, and 1 has more than 6 years. The county jail is not established to house residents this long, and the staff shortages complicate this. So there has, with the pandemic, there has been a delay in hearings, and staff shortages, it causes programming to not be available that could be otherwise. So the director has worked hard to get tablets in place, and the public library has recently agreed to deliver 100 DVDs that can be used, and we're exploring a television channel that can be used to bring in programming. The tablets would be able to be used for programming as well as entertainment, movies, music, and email. We have been trying to move the cases forward. The MacArthur Grant has done a fantastic job of reducing jail population, and we're looking now at low-risk cases that could be moved out onto location monitoring. So I think that part of this has to do with that, and so I think that if you look at trends nationally, and I expect this will go back down, but part of it is just the length of stay and the need to move people and frustrations that residents may have. Another example of what's been done here to be creative is there was a chess tournament where a national chess champion was brought in. There have been 2 of those. There has been a pickleball court that's been put into place as well. And so we're continuing to look at ways that we can provide opportunities for residents and bring enough staff on so that there's more time for recreation.
Aaron? Thanks.
Sure. Yeah.
How far, I'm seeing 2 years worth of use of force data.
Yeah,
How far
2.5.
out? 2.5.
Yeah.
You know, and I definitely, you know, you see a peak in the summer months last year. And so it makes me wonder if, you know, like just heat and the frustration, you know, and just that has anything to do with it, which is why I'd be curious if you have like longitudinal data that goes back, you know, 5 or 10 years, to see if there's any seasonality to this. I'm just wondering.
I don't know, Tricia, you're the one who provides the data. Do you know how far back we have it?
We can go back as far as we need to.
Okay.
I'd just love to see a decade's worth of data to see if there is any, you know, seasonality.
So I can give a little bit more information. So since we're short-staffed, they got locked down pods.
Yeah.
So the kids are in their cell, and then when they get out, they all want the phones, so they're fighting over phones. So a lot of the stuff is the fights. We've had a big uptick in fights. So when we get the tablets, they can use as phones. So pretty much every inmate will have their own phone, which will help.
Yeah. That's
We do have video phones that have been put into place, so, but being able to access all of those things is impacted by the shortage of staff.
So I know you will be reluctant to give a hard and fast timeline on the tablets.
Within the next 6 weeks.
Within the next 6 weeks?
Hopefully, like, sooner that, but I don't want to give.
Because I know they've pushed it a couple different times.
I think it'll be sooner than that, but I don't want to give a date and it doesn't happen.
Okay, and how do you? So I know this is good, but a little more granular data. So that's use of force. Do you have? I would be interested in a data on just fights.
Do that.
And I would also be interested in any, I know you guys do an investigation every time there's a fight. Do you code the results of those to say, so that you can say at the end of every month, a third of the fights are over phones, a quarter of the fights was, over food, whatever?
I'll have to look on that.
Okay.
I can't break it down for you, like for fights or other issues.
I think that would be useful data,
And then, and I'm sorry that Darby stepped down, because this might not be an area, Scott, that maybe Tony could answer. But Trish, when you said about the lockdown, right, which we understand due to staffing, but can't these majors and captains and Darby himself, I mean, he's not in there, but why can't they go and help facilitate some of these calls in the interim?
Everyone is. Even next week, I'm going to be trained Monday and Tuesday. I'm going to be working up there. Everybody in the jail is going to start working it.
Wait, Scott, I didn't mean to run over. Say that again?
Everyone is helping. Like Monday and Tuesday, I'm in training. I'm going to have to start helping working up there. Every person in the building is going to have to start helping.
So Jeff, when I get the minutes from the August 12th Justice Health and Welfare meeting, I think that we're going to find some things that are a little interesting about this helping out stuff, about all these people coming in and helping out.
Yeah, it was just changed this week. The county personnel approved additional staff assisting, and so process will be started. And it's a result of information that you're sharing and others, and we're listening and trying to do what we can to cover until we can bring the staff members back up.
We're just here to help to give advice. And, I think what probably gets me a little worked up is several months ago, 3 months to be exact, if not 4, I stated in this meeting, why can't some of these senior people help out and come in and relieve 2 hours, 4 hours? And now we're up to 73 openings, when back then we were in the late, high 50s. These residents are human beings who need contact. And Jeff, I heard you mention that some of the things is helpful is that when people can have contact with their families, it reduces it. And when I have residents telling me that we're not the city because we don't want to start throwing and acting out, we're not the city. We just want to be treated humanely. We want to be given some of our rec time. We want to be given, and we can no longer sit on our laurels and expect the same workforce to do all of the work and somebody not coming in there to help them 2 to 4 hours to facilitate some of those things. So I'm glad to hear that, Scott. I just want to now see it. I'm hearing it. I want to see it in action, because that's what's causing some more things, and that's why I tell you we'll talk offline, because, Jeff, we need to get ahead of this. We keep saying we don't want to be affiliated with the city and what goes on in the news, and we better start doing some things in there incrementally and changing it before we find ourselves trying to come up with a narrative to combat it. And that's not coming from me. That's coming from the residents.
Well, I encourage you to come in next week, and you'll see everybody process is starting next week.
Thank you, Trish. Thanks.
I'm sorry for the digression, Aaron.
No problem.
Hey, can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
And that was a good discussion of the use of force, and I agree with the comment that was made. Amazing as this dashboard is, it talks about what type of force was used, and it doesn't talk about what precipitated it. And so I think having a little bit more information, it doesn't have to go in a dashboard, don't worry, Aaron, but it would be useful information to me as an advisory board member. I also just sort of want to make sure I understand the data, and even I think I could compute this. It's per 1,000 residents, and we have about 1,000 residents in the jail, so it's kind
900.
of, yeah,
Yeah.
give or take. So you know, the use of force incidents went from 19 to 53, if I got it right, in the last month. So if I'm reading the numbers correctly, roughly 19 to 53. So that's like one extra one per day. So we went from having a little bit less than one per day to having about 2 per day. Is that how I would read it?
I think you're right, and I also want to echo what Tricia mentioned. There was a new video phone process that was put into place. So we're, with the rollout of this, and as well as limitations with COVID, right now, something that hasn't been mentioned is that only 50% of the people are allowed out based on health department guidelines. So there's already a limit to when people can be out, and there's a high demand for use of those video phones. So a lot of this surge is related to this, but with the tablets coming in and everyone being able to have their own email and form of communication and not trying to use a limited amount of phones, I think we're going to see a big improvement there. The video phones are a good thing, but also when you're in the environment that you're in and you have a good thing, you want more of it, and that brings some.
Who communicates these up to the resident?
Director Burris is communicating. One thing special about him is it's not just Tony. Director Burris and I are spending time. I came in on July 4th holiday and on weekends, and Tony was just here another weekend. So we're not, we're coming in and we're spending time talking with people, and Director Burris does this very often. So I think that he's talked with each pod about the tablets, and just with that, you want them as soon as possible. And so the wiring is in place, but there's, just like with trying to buy a car now these days, there's shortages of chips, and these are electronic devices, and we're just hopeful that we can get them in September at this point.
I need to, I also want to say something. I was here this past Saturday, came in at 6 a.m., but one thing I noticed that we got to keep in mind that the employees are working long hours. So anytime we're talking about implementing something new, it's something they have to learn. In the midst of the long hours that they work in, they keep saying you put more and more and more on us, as it wasn't there before, and we see a short staff. So we got to also look, even though it may be an uptick in use of force, we also got to realize these people are human beings that we're talking about. You know, on Monday, Tony comes in at 8 o'clock, it's not a problem. But if I'm working 12 hours a day, 12 hours a month, by Wednesday, I'm burnt out. So I may react a little bit differently on something on Wednesday than I did on Monday because of the long hours I just put in that particular week. So we also have to remember that. Stress factor. It's a stress factor, and the stress is being overloaded. And I experienced it myself when I came here to ask somebody to come work that day. Nobody responded with 15, 20 people in the room because I just worked. They said, Mr. I just worked 3 days in a row. I can't do it anymore. They want to, but their body's saying they can't. That's the problem. So we definitely want to keep that in mind. The money, I think, is going to help tremendously. But we also, got to make sure we give these people some time off.
Okay. Thank you. Aaron?
Sure. Let me move to the supplemental dashboard real quick, then I'll pass it off to Liz. I think just a couple things real quick on here. One is, as Dr. McBride mentioned, overtime hours are high, 6,900 in July. We'll see where that goes in August. Obviously, with the staff shortage, the number of overtime hours per correctional officer is also high, as that ratio's denominator is low. So, unfortunately, that's on a per worker basis, that's also very high as well. The other thing I wanted to mention is that video visits are back up. We're back up in July as opposed to being 0 in May and June. I think that is all on my end, unless anybody has any questions on either of the two dashboards. Please feel free to ask. If not, oh.
I would, Aaron, I would just point out on the hospitalizations, the ER runs, the number significantly lower, if you look at that trend chart. So, I noticed as I was looking at, the increase in the other, that those are being handled well. I'd like to compliment the staff on how they're handling those situations.
Right. Yeah, we had the significant increase in use of force in July without a correspondingly high increase in ER runs, which is a positive note. I did want to mention that I've not forgotten, there's still on my list that our next up projects for dashboards are to make a staff to inmate ratio window, which is going to go in this blank space right here. Still waiting, so we're still looking for the proper data for that in terms of the staffing numbers over time. And then we're also hoping to be able to roll out in the next month or two a third dashboard, which will be the financial metrics. So that is that's the plan for the next couple months as far as the dashboards go. And with that, I think I'll hand it to Liz.
Thank you. I don't know if you have any specific questions on any categories. There's not anything truly dramatic about any of the results that we have here. So I don't know if any of the board members were able to review the information and have questions in regards to any of the statistical data.
I'll keep this one up for a minute and then I'll go to the supplemental one.
Yeah, you know, this is my big concern.
What is?
I mean, you know, just seeing on both sides of the house here.
Oh,
you know,
that's staffing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's, you know, 18 to 28 in a, you know, in just 1 month, it seems like it could have a real impact.
Well, with the month of July, we had several planned exited nurses that were leaving due to agency. Their contract was up and they were not renewing. So 5 of them ended up leaving within the same week, which increased the availability. And we are working hard to track when people are planning on exiting so that we can have their replacement onboarded prior to their exit. So it's something that we're working hard with, the team is.
Yeah, Jeff,
But
on
yes,
that,
we're
sorry.
facing challenges.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jeff, on that one.
Go ahead. I guess we'll be hearing more about that in the next agenda.
You will, but I'll give you a COVID update if
Sure.
we can move. Aaron, do you want to show the second set?
Yeah, there you go.
There might be other questions in regards to the clinical data that's been charted. And nothing is an outlier in this area.
So Jeff, did I hear that we're going to talk some more about the staffing in the next agenda item?
We are, yeah. That's next.
I'll hold
Okay.
off on my question.
Okay.
So we've given over 13,000 COVID tests since April of 2020, and we have under 200 positive COVID cases within that time frame as well. So we've done extremely well in maintaining a healthy environment for our residents that we serve. So we continue to offer. We have 41% of the resident population has received the vaccination. Our medical director has gone to all pods and spoken to them about getting the vaccine, as well as we're addressing the individuals that qualify for a booster. and plan to administer those to the willing participants that are willing to get the third COVID vaccine. And she goes up there weekly to talk to everybody. They're offered a vaccine on a daily basis.
Give the total percentage.
41 or 41% is vaccinated.
Okay. Not like the rest of the state.
So we do well, but we continue. We would like it to be higher, but that's something, it's an ongoing challenge.
With the resident population still being as high, are there any other indicators that concern you about mental health admissions? Or are those numbers remaining steady, or do we see?
They're pretty steady.
Pretty steady.
Yeah.
Jeff, on the COVID update, you know, as I've always said, I think these numbers are pretty remarkable on what the health staff has been able to do. So applause on that. I think this, as we all know what's going on in prisons around the country, this stands out as one of the best that I've seen. And so that, you know, you all deserve an amazing amount of credit for that. And thanks for that update. I don't, you know, I can hear the numbers and all. I haven't seen a tracking or line on all this. So my question's about the Delta variant, which is taken off in the area and everywhere in the country. And of course, Missouri was the first out of the box, unfortunately. Now we're sort of maybe plateauing a little bit, but certainly not out of it. But as we know about this, it's mostly hitting younger people, at least first. At least that's my understanding with all the health experts here. I hate to speak out of sorts, but if it's under 35 or so, which strikes me as maybe similar to this jail population. So we haven't seen any indications of the Delta variant taking off.
No.
Well,
I mean, we will have individuals that'll come in and test positive. They're isolated and they do the quarantine process, and then they just move on to general population. And we're able to, some of them, most of them, we try and get them vaccinated, during that time frame. And here's Dr. Doucette.
Yeah, so certainly, Dr. McBride, we know at the population level that nearly all of the cases in the county, positive COVID-19 cases, are from the Delta variant. So certainly the folks who are coming into the jail who are COVID positive are affected by that variant. But I think what Liz points to here is that the protocols and procedures to keep those folks from infecting other people and to keep them healthy and safe that have been in place since last spring are working in this environment as well. So that's really encouraging, and we just keep doing what we're doing because it is working in this new environment as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's the important thing. I mean, you have a steady state that already looked good, and the comparison group is not looking good. So I think that's important to note. That's the main point in noting it, is, what's going on in the outside world, sadly, is worse. So, the numbers, we've seen those numbers. I mean, the case rate is now higher than it was a year ago. And, you're not seeing that in the jail. So I think that's worth just shouting out and saying out loud. And so congratulations.
I think the number of deaths yesterday was higher than it had been since I guess early March.
Yeah.
When the vaccine was first becoming widely available. So, well, okay.
I'm done.
Yeah, okay. Continued thank you for your efforts. And we will keep keeping our fingers crossed. Thank you, Emily. Nice to see you. Okay. Is Valerie going to talk about? Okay. Hey, Valerie.
Morning, everyone. Yes, thank you. So medical wanted to talk with the board as well. You know, again, this is just a sign of the environment that our agencies work in the correctional facilities, that it's really difficult to staff, and you know, and it's universal. As Liz described, what happened last month, of course, that was quite a significant challenge within the medical staffing too, but cyclical. And really what we wanted to take a minute to talk with the board today and try to start a longer conversation to really get at a longer term solution. We have for years been doing everything that leadership could do to encourage encourage awareness and the opportunity and the benefits for employment within the medical practice. And even in the last few years, we have made some pretty significant mitigation steps. We've done everything from increasing the base pay for 4 of our nursing and support licenses. We have improved the efficiencies with the recruiting process so that it's quickened and we're not losing we reduce the likelihood of missing or losing applicants because of the time that it takes. We've redesigned the operational models so that we are using the folks that we have in the most efficient way, and applying those licenses to folks to meet the real care. It could go on and on. We've done a lot of thought around this and tracking of those mitigation steps, and then watching what the results are. And unfortunately, we continue to be in this really tight staffing situation, and it's certainly enough of a risk that we want to raise this conversation here with the board now, because you know, everything from increasing salary to really significantly changing our operational model, and we still face this challenge. So a couple of key pieces that I would share just at this baseline kind of description of the state is that we are working with county personnel and our DPH HR to really understand now what the competitive analysis looks like in our area. We did that a couple of years ago, or last year also, just prior to those the wage increases that we did achieve. So we'll look at that again, but we have a few things happening. One is that we do know that the ratio, if you will, between the number of folks that come and look at our job descriptions, the postings, the ratio between those views and the people who actually hit the button to apply is stark. So as an example, we have continuous postings for our LPNs, RNs, and we've had RN supervisors posted as well for quite some time. We have anywhere from almost 7,000 views per month for any one of those postings, up to 12,000 views per month. And last month that translated into 2 actual applicants. And that's quite telling. And again, knowing that we did make pretty significant increases to the baseline salaries within the last couple of years, I think that normally that would have been quite an improvement. We, like every other organization in the healthcare industry right now, are pretty crippled by what the impact that COVID has had on staffing for clinicians. We see in the news regularly. So even without having this personnel and HR legitimized competitive analysis, we know very well that the large hospital systems around us and around the country are paying upwards of $100 to $200 per hour for clinicians. This is not a scenario that we're going to fix with adding salary, right? That's not what our ask is here. But that is the reality that we face in trying to find quality clinicians to come and work in our environment. So, so some pretty systemic challenges and barriers. That's the essence of the message, really. And I think that our ask at this point would be that if the board would consider perhaps a subcommittee or some type of recommendation that we could partner now to really think about what these long-term options could be, because you know, we've been in the same position as what the Justice Services Agency has described too, with mandatory overtime for our clinicians. We've hit a year at this point where they've been required to work an extra 8-hour shift every 2 weeks. And it's really fatiguing. And we still have, you know, these challenges in staffing to the critical requirement of, you know, of the workforce on any given shift. So, so that's kind of the state of where we are, and just my general ask of, you know, what could we start to partner with now to think about some options for a long-term solution.
Thank you, Valerie.
You don't.
I'm sorry?
Dr.
Do you mind if I add a few things? This is Emily. Yeah, so obviously, and I know this has been an ongoing discussion with our Justice Services colleagues, and it's certainly an ongoing discussion all over the place. And we certainly recognize, frankly, the decades-old challenge of staffing our corrections medicine practice, and the fact that this is really a national issue. So we recognize all of that. I do want to highlight, just out of kind of pride for the team, that we have the work, and there's really a lot of creative and innovative things that have happened in this space. And I think there's a lot of progress, but at the leadership level, I think we're just kind of calling out at this point that we've exhausted a lot of the available and feasible options. And it warrants kind of an elevation at this point about the, you know, our concern or thoughts as we really always prioritize patient safety and staff wellness. So I do want to point out that in the last year and a half or so, we've rolled out 2 really significant changes in the model with our 24/7 advanced practice provider model. So that's the model in which we have a nurse practitioner or a PA in the building 24/7, 365, providing direct medical care. I will tell you that we've brought on, we have 5 nurse practitioners or PA colleagues and our medical director, which is more provider staffing than the facility has seen and as long as I have known it. And frankly, that is a very strong and committed team. The care at that level is phenomenal, and at all levels. So I just really want to point that piece out. The EMT and paramedic model, which we rolled out about a year ago, very innovative in this space as well. And essentially, we've brought in EMT and paramedic colleagues, which those folks obviously have a lot of emergency and triage experience, which has worked really well in the environment, and I think paired really well with our nursing colleagues, and has helped to balance some of the challenges we've had with hiring nurses. So I think we've done a lot of innovative things, and I just want to call that out for the board and for the staff who have worked really hard on those things. And also just call out that our corrections medicine staff are really, truly inspirational healthcare professionals. I mean, the commitment and passion for the folks who are working in this environment right now, in the COVID environment, but certainly just in general, because of their staunch commitment to quality medical care for all people and people who are incarcerated, is just it's just something that we want to call out. And certainly in thinking about innovative solutions and next steps, always want to center the role and the value of our folks as we look at that and think potentially differently. So I'll pause there, but I think we really are at a place of kind of asking for a level of engagement and support from the board as we consider some long-term solutions.
Jeff, can I speak up? I feel like I've been talking too much in this meeting, but can I respond?
Not only are you not talking too much, but I was actually just about to say we would be, you know, certainly amenable as a board to forming a subcommittee. And I was going to ask if there was anyone who had a lifetime of expertise studying the economics of healthcare.
Who would that be? That's you, Jeff. You've taught economics before, right?
Not of healthcare.
Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah, so I just, I'll just echo what you said, and thank you, Valerie, and Emily and Dr. Khan for everything you've done on this. And I appreciate the presentation and the struggles. As you know, the whole labor force, and I am an economist, is struggling right now at these levels. There's lots of studies now going on about why there's labor force shortages in certain areas. That probably needs to be brought to bear on this. Those numbers you cited were alarming. So, I would be willing, and don't want to ask for a lot more work, but I definitely would be willing to sit on a subcommittee. It sounds like that's what needs to happen. It's too bad my friend Alex Garza is otherwise occupied, but if he's looking for something to do while he's in Iraq, we could pull him in. But as you know, Emily and others, we've met before and given you advice, and I think that's kind of what you're asking for. So I don't want to preclude what that advice might be, but I think it strikes me that this is pretty urgent.
Well, thank you for volunteering, Tim.
I think I just did. I have a question that I wanted to ask, and I don't want to jump ahead of the subcommittee, but you're talking about innovations. Can you quickly talk about, in the world that I live in, we're talking, and we actually have a rural health committee that's been writing about telehealth. So one of the things we know that's happened in COVID is, unless the rest of you don't know this, but telehealth visits have exploded in probably, when I say exploded, I literally mean exploded. If Aaron did a graph of this, it would, it's 1,000-fold in Medicare since COVID. All of us are talking about whether this is going to continue or not. So I don't want to, maybe you can just say, let's talk about it in the subcommittee and come back. But that's definitely one solution healthcare is moving towards, is telehealth. And what do you do around telehealth?
Sure. So definitely, I think that's a potential innovation in this space, and we've seen that transform all kinds of clinical services that we do in the obvious and also interesting and other ways. We do some telehealth in the jail environment right now. So I think it works well, obviously, for kind of some of the more chronic care, some mental health care, primary care type work. A real large piece of what we're doing in care delivery is more acute, acute care type of work. And then obviously, when we're talking about our other clinician staff, things like passing medications and taking sick calls and other things like that we have actually, during parts of this pandemic, had some innovation in use of telehealth in some of those spaces, but it really would be an interesting discussion, I think, to have offline about application of that in a way that would be relatively unique. So,
the word we use is it should be a complement, not a substitute.
Right.
For things like primary care. I mean, you can't just, some people want to say, oh, we don't need a primary care doc because now we have a teledoc. That's not really the answer. And you're right that it's been working pretty well in mental health and all that. And, the final comment I would make, and I'll just shut up, is the recent experience with the council suggests that on the pay increase thing, that they responded to evidence-based numbers, it strike me. And if you put, and I heard Valerie's comments about comparative salaries, and that was something that resonated with them, I think. I think that might have sold the day in terms of the salary increase, just sort of like they're going, oh, we're not paying as well as St. Charles or whatever. So, I think they need to have some numbers put in front of them.
And I think Jeff, if I could just add to that, Valerie and Dr. Doucette are absolutely right, and I think Tim probably appreciates this since he studies the labor market, but there are some weird sort of trends that have taken shape over the last year and a half to two. You know, the shortage of CDL drivers, for example, that seems to have plagued several industries. Nurses are a very hot commodity right now in terms of hospital systems and private practices competing for them and paying them great amounts of money, which they richly deserve. They're amazing. And so our program is centered around those skilled nurses, and they're amazing individuals. They work, you know, in a 24/7, 365, high intensity, high pressure environment. And so, you know, as a government entity, we really need to take a look at innovative operational models, because we will continue to hemorrhage staff, even good people that, you know, really are motivated to work, simply cannot resist financial incentives elsewhere. And that is perfectly plausible and reasonable. So we look forward to working with the board to figure out what else we can look at to sustain the high quality operation that we have.
Thank you, Dr. Khan. So I certainly think that the board should form a subcommittee. Why don't I touch base? You know, is there anyone else on the board who would be interested in participating? Okay, well, okay, well, why don't, and Valerie and Emily, could you give me a sense of what kind of timeline you're thinking?
As soon as calendars allow?
Come again?
Oh, as soon as calendars allow.
As soon as calendars allow. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking more in terms of like a set of recommendations or some, you know, from the subcommittee to the broader board.
Mm-hmm. We recognize that any kind of you know, real change is going to, in and of itself, once we've identified the options for change, it's going to take another sequence of events and a process just to do that, right? And so, and that's just the environment that we work in. So recognizing that the implementation of an option is going to take a while. I mean, I would champion that yes, we do work as quickly as is feasible to try to outline what those options are.
Okay. Well, great. So I will touch base with Tim offline, and then and you as well, and then we will, you know, we will plan to create a subcommittee, and then let you know the composition of what that looks like. The only thing that I would say, and like Tim, you know, it's striking to hear the disparity between what you're paying and what people are getting, you know, out there. And it's also daunting because no conceivable council action is going to close a gap that wide. And so the solution is going to probably be multifaceted, you know, just based on what you're saying. So thank you for, you know, bringing it to our attention. You know, our focus has gone in different directions over the last, you know, 2.5 years. But really the roots of what we're here for and what we were originally here for are in, you know, the physical health of detainees. And so perhaps this is a healthy refocus for us to think more deeply about this. So I look forward to, thank you for reaching out to me earlier this week to kind of, you know, apprise me in a little more depth of kind of the history of this, and we'll be in touch once I talk to some board members individually, okay? Thank you, Valerie, Dr. Khan, and Emily for your perspectives. All right, new business. I have one item which saddens me, but I'm going to read a letter from Director Burris. The subject line is upcoming change in leadership. Dear members of the board, I recently met with County Executive Dr. Sam Page and informed him that due to a family situation that must be my priority, I will be vacating the position of director and re-entering the world of retirement on October 1st, 2021. Since I took this position, many people have asked me, what has been your biggest surprise on the job? My answer is always the same. The public does not know or fully appreciate the heroic work that the employees in Justice Services do every day. It's been a joy to work with and for these heroes. I've also enjoyed working with the clients and detainees that the agency oversees and serves. We must continue to invest in their success. I thank the board for all of their support and direction in making Justice Services better. Sincerely, Doug Burris. So, I've been privileged to work with Doug over the last year. I knew him in a little different capacity a decade ago as a federal probationer, but could tell even as a client that the culture of that agency was very different from what I had heard about in prison, where I was incarcerated with many people who were there back in prison on violations, who talked about their POs always looking to try to violate them. And I said, that's not the experience. You know, I realized that was not the experience I had at all. I had a PO that, you know, was like a life coach, you know, just had me in for a few minutes. You know, how's your family, how's your wife, how are your parents doing, you know, how's the job search, and the culture of the place did not feel punitive in any way. And so when Doug came here and when I worked to help convince him to come here, I was hopeful that he could help bring that same type of that focus on rehabilitation and humanity to all staff and detainees to this facility. And in the last year, he certainly has made tremendous strides in doing that. So it's been my, again, honor to work with him, and I hope that, you know, I know that over the next month we'll have a lot of change and a lot of transition, but we're hopeful that a lot of what he started will continue, and the change in the culture here that is palpable from a couple of years ago when we started will not be an aberration, but will be the start of a long-term, you know, movement to make this a world-class facility. And in particular, much more specifically, the kinds of initiatives like, you know, the open door to seeing staff and having one-on-ones with staff on the front lines, the you know, willingness to listen, to hear our advice and implement recommendations, and an increased, you know, openness to outside visitors and transparency, all of that on a micro level, we want to continue. Are there other thoughts from board members?
I put my thoughts in the chat and I just gave an amen to what you said. Director Burris done a great job. And certainly it's understandable if he's got, for the reasons cited. But I think the citizens of the county should be thankful for his efforts.
All right, thank you, Tim. Is there any other new business? All right, are there any visitors who have submitted anything via email, Trish? Okay. All right, our next board meeting will be the fourth Friday of September. And I believe that is the 24th. Let me just confirm that. Yes, Friday, September 24th at 9 a.m. As always, please let me know anytime during the next month if there are items that you'd like to be on next month's agenda, or items that have more urgency that you would like addressed sooner than that. Thank you, Scott, for filling in for Doug today, and thanks to all of you for your perspective. Have a great weekend. I will move to adjourn. Do you want to roll call?
Yes. Give it a second.
Second.
Dr. Smith?
Aye.
Dr. McBride?
Aye.
Reverend Duval? Dr. Khan?
Aye.
Dr. Hubner?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
All right.